Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to express my gratitude to the chair and to the committee staff for their work on AB 727. I also acknowledge and accept the committee amendments. As hate and discrimination rise across the nation, LGBTQ plus youth have now become a target of the federal administration. Our community, especially our youth, are being exploited by political opportunists more focused on gaining media attention and social media clout than on representing their constituents and addressing real issues. AB 727 is a bill rooted in urgency. We are confronting a growing mental health crisis among LGBTQ plus youth across our state. Schools should be a safe place for children to learn, build friendships, and develop a sense of belonging. Unfortunately, the reality is stark. Our schools are the third most common location where LGBTQ plus youth experience hate crimes, bullying, incidents, and so much more than doubling between 2018 and 2022, according to the FBI. A study by the Trevor Project found that among 18,000 LGBTQ plus young people ages 13 to 24 surveyed nationwide, 39% seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, and 12% attempted suicide. That means thousands of children have actively attempted suicide because they felt they had nowhere else to turn. We recognize that more must be done. This bill is a small but necessary step toward providing critical resources to students by including the Trevor Project suicide hotline on the back of student ID cards. Before I turn it over to my witnesses, I want to acknowledge the amendments that are taken. While private schools are now exempt from the bill, I strongly encourage them to ensure that their LGBTQ plus students receive the support that they need and that they receive the support now. My primary witness in support with us today this afternoon to highlight the impact of this bill is Eve Banis, and she's the Sacramento LGBTQ plus Community Center's Advocacy and Training Lead, and Bridget McCarthy, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, who is here with us now to share a personal story about her son. But we'll kick it off with Eve.
Thank you, Assemblymember, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Eve Banis with the Sacramento LGBT Community Center, a proud co-sponsor of AB 727. I'm here today to speak in support of this simple bill that will help save the lives of our most marginalized youth. The center works to create a region where all LGBTQ plus people thrive. We support health and wellness, advocate for equity and justice, and work to uplift our diverse and culturally rich LGBTQ plus community. At the center, we are a trusted resource for LGBTQ plus youth seeking mental health support, and we often hear stories about the harassment youth experience in schools and the lack of affirming resources available to them. Harassment and discrimination make it difficult for children to feel a sense of belonging at school. This negatively impacts their ability to thrive both personally and academically. In 2024, the Trevor Project found that 39% of LGBTQ plus youth and a staggering 46% of transgender youth seriously considered suicide. I'll repeat that. Nearly half of trans youth seriously considered suicide in the last year. Despite this, LGBTQ plus students still lack access to suicide prevention resources specific to their unique experiences and needs. This bill will help fill these gaps by adding the Trevor Project's hotline to the back of student ID cards. Suicide hotlines are a trusted and effective strategy to help prevent youth suicide and increase mental health resource availability. And by adding an LGBT-specific hotline, we ensure that our most vulnerable students have an easily accessible resource to support them during a crisis. Because that is the purpose of this bill, preventing youth suicide. It's really that simple. We ask that you stand with LGBT youth today and advance this life-saving suicide prevention legislation. In the face of so much hate and violence, these young people need your support. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Bridget McCarthy from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, the Greater Los Angeles and Central Coast chapter, and I'm here because my amazing son, Riley Chart, died by suicide in September 2020. He died in his bedroom less than 2 weeks after his 16th birthday. His birthday balloons were still up in his room. Immediately after, I started 2 memorials to spread the word. One with the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, which is the nation's #1 public funder of suicide prevention research, and one with the Trevor Project, which is the nation's #1 resource for LGBTQ kids, like my Rye. Suicide is a huge cause of risk among young people, and I believe that AB 727, as introduced by Assemblymember Mark Gonzalez, offers vital help. After Riley died, we discovered that while in crisis, he had texted a friend. The friend did not reply. Despite extensive therapy, visits to doctors, hospitals, Riley did not have a single suicide hotline in his phone. But being a proud member of the LGBTQ+ community, I believe sincerely he would have reached out. I believe he would have phoned the Trevor Project number because they would understand his pain. The Trevor Project knows exactly how to support LGBTQ people in crisis, and giving that space between the suicidal feeling and the action is crucial, because the suicidal feeling wanes in mere minutes sometimes. When I found Riley, just a few minutes too late, the last text to a friend for help was just 15 minutes earlier. My son was reaching out for help, but no one to reach out to, and that especially breaks my heart. I have no agenda in this at all. This, to me, is a public health issue. My child's suffering was absolutely real, and I want to stop another parent from the worst kind of grief imaginable. There is nothing that prepares you for losing a child. Please pass this bill. I believe from the bottom of my heart that it will save lives like my Riley. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments in support of the measure, please come forward.
Mr. Chair and members, Tristan Brown of CFT, happy to support this bill.
Mr. Chair and members, John Winger on behalf of the California Charter School Association, also in support.
Pamela Gibbs, representing the Los Angeles County Office of Education, in support of the bill.
McLean Rosansky with the Alameda County Office of Education, in support.
Elle Grant on behalf of the California Alliance of Child and Family Services, in support.
Catherine Squire on behalf of the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, in support.
Donna Cecil, parent of an LGBTQ parent, in support.
Sky Tooley, they, them, 5th grade teacher in Los Angeles, I support.
Craig Pulser on behalf of Equality California, in support.
Tony Ayala, faculty of Child Development and Family Studies, in strong support.
Sarah Weber, I'm a resident of Sacramento County, and I support.
Seeing no further public comments in support, witnesses in opposition. You have 2 witnesses.
Good afternoon, respected members, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dr. Taif Casey, and I served on the Democratic Party previously as a delegate, as well as a member of the executive board of the San Bernardino Democratic Party. However, I left due to some of the ultra-left ideology that was being promoted. And regarding to the Trevor Project, I like to inform you that on behalf of the Muslim community, I write and express my deep concerns and strong opposition to Bill 727. Because if you were to go inside and look through what's being promoted, it's completely unacceptable. Promotion of a child separating from his parents and choosing a whole new family. These are roots that do not reflect any of the Muslim community. While with wholeheartedly we support and address mental health as a very important matter to prevent the youth suicide, we're deeply concerned that the proposed AB 727 undermine the religious liberty, parental rights, and the identity of the faith-based communities. Mandating an inclusion of the Trevor Project connect information on every student's ID card imposes a single ideological approach on a diverse and multi-faith student population by exposing the student to an array of identities that are not aligned with our religious beliefs. To us, God created man and woman. To have someone stealing our children and undermine our religious belief is very unacceptable. The fact that an adult talking to our children without being consented, without being a parent present, is not acceptable. As a physician, I can tell you, we cannot even treat a child without a family member, an adult, who's going to consent on them. Yet, somebody else can have our child completely steered away from what the family believes in just because the person on the opposite side is steering their children the way they want to. The Trevor Project, through presenting the suicide prevention resources, promotes content and values that contradict Islamic teaching and, in fact, teaching of all Abrahamic religions on gender, sexuality, and identity. It is not aligned in beliefs of the Muslim communities as well as those of the Christians and Jews who believe in the Abrahamic religions. Muslims parents, like all parents, have the right and responsibility to guide their children to moral spiritual development. AB 727, as I said, undermines, and we strongly oppose it. As a previous member, co-chair of the LA County Department of Health Faith-Based Advocacy Council, and served on multiple boards, including the TAY and their needs and everything. Okay, I know what suicide is. I've served on those panels, and we worked on developing programs that are truly for suicide. And my condolences, and I feel your pain. No parent should go through that. And I have people that are within my congregation who have lost their children in suicide.
We're going to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I do feel your pain. However, the Trevor Project, the ideology behind it is not acceptable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Chair and members, I'm a constitutional attorney and serve as the president of the National Center for Law and Policy. The opposition letter I submitted details how AB 727 violates the free speech of religious schools protected by the First Amendment and harms parental rights protected by the 14th Amendment. Your highest duty as legislators is to uphold the U.S. Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. For more than 100 years, the U.S. Supreme Court has held that the 14th Amendment protects the fundamental right of parents to direct the care, education, and raising of their children. Children do not belong to the state. They belong to their families. This fundamental right of parents includes the right to inculcate religious beliefs and make health care decisions, including directing mental health care and counseling when their children are in distress. Parents are best situated to know, love, and care for their children. Neither the state nor the Trevor Project have the authority to circumvent, question, or undermine parental authority for minor children. The only exception is when parents are unfit, and the state may not assume that parents are unfit merely because they do not affirm the state's sexual orientation and gender identity ideologies. Yet AB 727 does precisely that. It assumes parents are the enemy of their child's best interest when experiencing gender identity confusion or same-sex attraction. Yet, as was recently held in the Mirabelli case cited in my letter, that is precisely when children need their parents the most. Yet AB 727 provides Trevor Project's contact information, separating children from their parents by allowing the struggling child to contact an organization with no government or parental oversight or accountability. A group that maintains a myriad of unregulated chat rooms where adults posing as children can interact with minor children regarding sexual issues with no guardrails. This is a groomer's paradise, and it violates parental rights and is unacceptable in a civilized society. Children don't need protection from their parents. They need protection from the Trevor Project and this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments in opposition to the bill, please come forward.
My name is Meg Madden-Orator Mark. I represent CAUSE, Californians United for Sex-Based Evidence in Policy and Law, and Women Are Real, nonpartisan groups representing many Democrats and gay and lesbian adults in opposition to AB 727.
Greg Burt from the California Family Council in strong opposition.
Sig Smith, founder of Mom and Dad Army with over a dozen chapters here in California. We vehemently oppose AB 727.
Sabrina Williams, representing Mom Army Sacramento and Placer County. We're in strong opposition.
David Bolog, Committee to Repeal Education Code 221.5F, in opposition.
Nicole Young, Placer County Chapter Chair, Moms for Liberty, as well as the Legislative Chair of the Legislative California Moms for Liberty Group, in very strong opposition.
Florentina DiGennaro with Mom Army, Yuba Sutter Area, Freedom Coalition, and Glad Tidings Church in Yuba City, in strong opposition.
Christine Bish, legal advocate for the California Parents Union and the Vice President of the Sacramento Republican Assembly. We strongly oppose this bill.
Columbus Ward, I strongly oppose this bill. We have a 988 number.
Sir, you don't get to testify. There are two witnesses in opposition. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sophia Laurie with California Family Council in opposition.
Thank you. Bringing it back to the committee. Any questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Ms. Bonta.
I want to thank the author for bringing this bill forward. I just want to clarify right now that on our existing law allows our student ID cards to have a 988 suicide number, crisis lifeline, a national domestic violence hotline, and more specifically, sometimes a QR code that links to mental health resources, and in higher education settings, the addition of a campus police telephone number. The addition of one number that ensures that our LGBTQ students have the ability to recognize that they have resources, I think is incredibly important and critical. And I want to thank you, author, for bringing forward this bill. We all need to be able to have the support that we can reach out to. And the simple thing of putting 10 digits on the back of a card, knowing that it could save a life, I think is something that California should do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further, Ms. Vice Chair Hoover?
Thank you. So I think what one of the witnesses in opposition was trying to get to, but I obviously understand testimony was over, was actually a question that I had, and it's that is there not already a hotline that is required to be placed on these student IDs currently?
Yeah, so there is a requirement to have 988 on the back of student ID cards currently. However, that's not a specific hotline to LGBT folks, and so it might not be clear to LGBT people experiencing a crisis that there are resources from people who understand them, understand their identities, understand their unique experiences. And so the intent of this bill, the purpose of this bill is to add something that is an LGBT-specific hotline to the back of ID cards to address the disproportionate mental health impacts, suicide risk for LGBT populations.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to add, and also keeping in mind that this generation we are focused on are youth. We have a text hotline, not a 988. You can't text a 988 number. So let's be clear about that.
Okay. Well, I hate to disagree on that point. Actually, if you go to the 988 website right now, there is a text option, a call option. It is something that is provided. So I do agree with you. We got to be able to reach young people where they are, and texting is a great way to do that. The 988 number does allow that. It's my understanding 988 number is designed to serve everyone. Do you have specific examples where the 988 number has not served everyone in an appropriate way?
So, the purpose of this bill is to have an overtly LGBTQ resource available to students. I think when students are in crisis, it's important that, a young LGBT person sees, oh, this is a resource designed for me. This is a resource that's going to address my specific needs. And that is not going to be clear to them just seeing 988 on the back of their ID card.
I also just want to add the point that although you might agree that you can text 988, you actually have to explain that. And, it doesn't say that on the back to text 988. And so that's also another piece of it. Also, the fact is that we can create a QR code And I think that's also we have to be creative and innovative to include that piece of it on the phone number. I'm not sure what folks are so afraid about adding a number to prevent somebody from being taken off this planet. I wish I had that. And frankly, here's my student ID from when I was, many moons ago. Guess what? There's nothing on the back of it. And my point is to say that it's a very simple step in the right direction to save lives. And that is not a Democrat or Republican issue. That is a human issue.
I think, I actually can say for sure that I wholeheartedly agree. We need to have a number on these cards. We do have a number on these cards. I believe I supported that legislation. Yeah. I don't remember what year we passed that, but if I was here, I absolutely would have supported that and did support that. I think here's my concern, and you asked the question, why would someone be concerned? I think the concern is which number we're talking about here. So I guess, my question, next question would be, does the Trevor Project in any way advocate for political causes or have any resources involving political?
So it's a national 24/7 LGBT hotline. Again, if you feel that you are going to remove yourself from this planet, it's not a political issue. It's a human issue. And you have to understand that if the person is at the brink of where they are at in their life, or they just need to talk to someone or text someone, this is the line in which to do it, which creates a safety net for those individuals who feel they can do that. 988 is not a number people are familiar with. They're familiar with the Trevor Project. And it's not just anybody who's LGBTQ+. It's a line for everybody who can have accessibility to that. Folks shouldn't be afraid of that.
So, and again, my concern has nothing to do with the ability to call a hotline.
Sure.
Obviously, that is something that I support. I think where I disagree and where I have objections is that if you go right now, not calling the hotline necessarily, but if you go right now to the Trevor Project website, there are a number of resources provided that are very political in nature. There is access to a number of things that I would argue a lot of parents would be uncomfortable with. The website itself actually acknowledges this. Itself, when you log into the website, it actually says, if you need to get out of this website quickly, just triple tap it and it'll go back to Google. It'll get out of the screen. I mean, those are not actions that you take when you have resources, that you are not concerned about people viewing or parents seeing or anything like that. Now, you may be right, and I fully understand your support of the Trevor Project. I think the question, though, we have as policymakers is this an organization that we should be putting on every student's ID card? Now, I do want to say I really appreciate the committee amendments that took private schools out of this bill. I think that was a very inappropriate thing that was included in this bill and probably would have had some pretty serious constitutional concerns as well. So I do appreciate that amendment. I think that makes the bill a lot stronger. But I do just want to make clear kind of these objections. I think that what we have already done in this body and what we've already supported is absolutely necessary and important to supporting people that are considering suicide. I do think that this legislation specifically takes it into a direction that I am not comfortable with, because it really does open it up to an organization that is not just about preventing suicide. It's about other causes as well. And so for those reasons, unfortunately, I will need to oppose the bill today. Thank you.
And if I could just address those two pieces, the reason why the Google piece where it says you need to escape this quickly is because you're afraid to tell your parent or somebody who's around you. So you exit out of that quickly. If you don't have a privacy screen or you're looking up something that you don't want somebody to look at, you want to have that tool available to you to be able to quickly put that away because you feel ashamed and embarrassed. And so the point of that is simply to provide that tool so that someone can exit very quickly so they don't get in trouble. And the part about private schools not being taken out of this equation, I frankly think it's wrong. We agreed to the amendments because we want this bill to pass, but private school students probably have it the worst. In Harvard Westlake about a month ago, 10 students committed suicide because they weren't meeting their academic goals or they were LGBT+. Because folks who said, I'm so afraid about, I'm not going to come home with those grades or I'm not going to be able to come out to my parents, and they took their life because of that, That's why this bill is here. And those are the schools that need this the most.
Thank you.
Ms. Castillo, then Ms. Bonta.
I just wanted to add, as a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional clinical counselor who has worked with children in a clinic setting, and I see how the 988 number is on the cards. I'm going to tell you right now, from my personal experience in working with children, when they're going to be in a crisis or when they are in a crisis, they're not looking for who's going to be LGBTQ, who's understand. They're just going to call that 988 number and talk to whoever's on the other line. I never had one kid who was LGBTQ come into my office to ask me if I, was a supporter or wasn't. I'm there to help for their issue that they're having and help them process so that they don't go through with whatever it is that's on their mind. So the 988 I feel is sufficient to be on the card, and I'm giving this information as someone who has worked with the population and has, helped a lot of kids from going that route.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Ms. Bonta.
I just wanted to respond to Assemblymember Hoover's line of argumentation, and now Assemblymember Castillo's to some extent. We not only need to meet children where they are, but we need to meet children as who they are. And our youth in particular, those who are LGBTQ, often have a very, very strong sense of identity and developing identity, and research, evidence, practices around, like best practices around youth development really speak to making sure that that youth has the ability to quickly access people who have affinity for the identity that they are experiencing, and that is theirs. And having a brand that is known, like the Trevor Project, be that outreach will make a difference. And again, I also don't see why we are in such vehement opposition to making sure that we meet children as who they are, and that we're providing resources specific to who they are. That's an incredibly important thing for us to do, and that we somehow are trying to broaden it out to say, oh, that's already provided. It's actually not. If it were, then people would be alive.
Thank you, Dr. Patel.
Could I just add briefly that I do believe that my son had a very unique view of himself, and would have called somebody that thought that they could understand them. They would have, the community that would be able to relate to the bullying and the struggles and everything else. And if you call 988, you might get an adult, you may get somebody who doesn't understand that, and that will not be the case. 14% of our kids attempted suicide, 14%. So adding a number, we will absolutely save lives. That's just all there is to it. It's just 10 digits, and we will save lives.
Thank you, Dr. Patel.
Thank you for bringing this bill forward. I was a school board trustee when the 988 line got added to our school district student ID cards, public school district, and we definitely appreciated providing children, students with that opportunity to access a much-needed resource when they're in crisis. Hearing some comments today from my assembly colleague here, I agree that we have to meet students where they are. And it might not be every time that a student looks on their ID when they're in crisis, but if they're searching for a friend who may not be able to counsel them, or who may have phone restrictions and have to put it away late at night and may not be able to answer that call, then there will be a line for them to call. And if we could interrupt that, those thoughts of suicidal ideation, that is critical. My question to you today with the Trevor Project, I am not as familiar with the Trevor Project. I haven't done web searches or investigations. I know we have community members in my community that are very supportive, and some that have raised concerns about the Trevor Project over the past several years. are your crisis prevention hotline attendees, the counselors who answer the calls, do they have some cultural competency training with regards to other religions, other faiths, other cultures, so that we're counseling in a culturally responsive way? Because I know our LGBTQ students and community members are by their very nature intersectional. They have multiple identities. They are, from faiths, from communities, from traditions, and also identifying within the LGBTQ community. So they are absolutely intersectional.
So what I can say, we know that the suicide risk for LGBT folks is disproportionately higher for LGBT people of color. So this is something that the Trevor Project has in their statistics, in their studies. And what I can say about their hotline, not I don't work there, but their hotline, they do require everyone who works for the hotline to undergo rigorous training. They are required to pass background checks, and they are required to have supervised calls. So there are these metrics in place to ensure quality and to ensure that they are meeting students where they are and being available to all students, all young people who need access to that resource.
So specifically for the concerns of the opposition member here, some of the concerns he raised, I also would echo. Having very close family ties, I wouldn't want my children being counseled to leave their families. However, that being said, I'm very close to my children, right? And we're a very open and inclusive family that may not be the same for all children. So in those situations, I would love to have some reassurance. I understand you may not be able to provide that today, but would love to continue this conversation with the author, that we make sure that there is cultural competency training and we're not further creating strife and hardship and internal identity crisis for a child as we're trying to counsel them through suicidal ideation.
And I appreciate that, and thank you for mentioning that. That's specific. But I also want to just be clear that, and close out a couple points here on that, separate from my closing. If you are the party of pro-life, this is keeping people alive. Keep that in mind.
Mr. Gonzalez. Well, yes, go ahead.
And then I'll close.
I appreciate that. I think, again, I will restate, because I feel like I've restated it multiple times. 100% agree. There should be a number printed on the card, and I supported that. There is a number on the card. Absolutely, we should do everything we can to prevent youth suicides. That's also why, I fought for phone-free schools, because I really do believe that access to a lot of these products, social media, all of these other things are really putting more and more strain on today's youth and creating a lot more pressure that doesn't need to be there. So 100% agree on that. I do question and want to ask you, right, if you would be comfortable with, if the tables were turned. Again, it's not so much the concept of what you were trying to do, it's the organization. And I think that if we were in, let's say, a different state with a different majority, and there was an effort by a member of the other party to put, let's say, a crisis pregnancy center number on the back of a school ID card, that is something I would also oppose, because I just don't think it is appropriate for a school setting to be on a school ID card. I would guess that most of the people, on this dais would also be uncomfortable with that. So I guess that is really my objection here. It is not your stated goal, which I wholeheartily agree with. Sure. But it is the organization that you've kind of chosen to put on the ID card. But yeah, I appreciate the dialogue.
If you can find me another organization, my friend, we can work together on that. But right now, there is not. So.
All right, thank you.
So I'll go ahead and close, Mr. Chair, or unless there's. Oh, sorry,
Ms. Bont.
I mean, I'm sitting here doing what I'm not supposed to do, Chair, and on my phone. And I looked up the Trevor Project, and I went through the crisis hotline, and certainly the opposition is there. That there is if you scroll far into it, there's an about us, and there's an advocacy component. I just want to share what the advocacy is that this so-called inappropriate organization is advocating for: ending conversion therapy, making sure to collect LGBTQ plus inclusive data, and creating safe and welcoming schools, and supporting trans young people. So I just want to make sure that we are clear that we are code switching essentially by saying that we are somehow afraid of the type of advocacy that this one particular organization is doing, when in fact, the advocacy that they are doing is focused in on ensuring that our trans youth and our LGBTQ youth are supported. So, to share that.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, I'm happy to support your bill. Would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to members of the committee. Some in this room may believe that they can erase queerness by denying resources to LGBTQ plus students. They refuse to acknowledge the reality of queer existence. But do you know what's real? Our children are dying because of who they are and because they are treated as outcasts, and we cannot afford inaction. Some believe that being gay and being religious are mutually exclusive. Think again, folks. My name is Assemblyman Mark Gonzalez, and I'm an openly gay man. And every Sunday, I sit in the pews of my Catholic parish, the same church I made my first communion and my confirmation. I pray the same prayers, kneel at the same altar, receive the same Eucharist, and open my heart to the same gospel that teaches love, mercy, and justice. Especially now in the sacred season of Lent, I reflect on what it truly means to walk with Christ in the wilderness, what it means to bear witness to suffering and not turn away. I am living proof that queerness and faith are not in conflict. They can coexist, not just in me, but in countless young people who are desperately searching for a sign that they belong. Even if it's something as small as what's printed on the back of their high school ID card, they're looking for a signal that they are seen, that they are loved, and that they belong, both in this world and in the eyes of God. To those who raise concerns about religious schools, I hear you. I understand the value and sacredness of faith traditions. But I also believe that our faith compels us to do more, not less, for the most vulnerable among us. In Matthew 25:40, Jesus says, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." That verse doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't say only if they fit your image. It says whoever, because Christ's love is boundless. And if I may, I take inspiration from my own namesake, St. Mark, the evangelist, whose gospel reminds us again and again that faith is not passive. It demands action. In Mark 12:31, Jesus says, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." That is not a suggestion. It's a commandment. It is a call. This bill is not about silencing faith. It is about saving lives. It is about making sure that every child, regardless of who they are, knows they're worthy of love, of care, and protection. This place, this capital we call Sacramento, is not just where laws are made. It should also be mercy shown where justice is lifted up and where the command to love thy neighbor is made real in the lives of our people. Now is not the time to fear or to create division. Now is the time to be the good Samaritan, to cross the road, to bind up the wounds, to say, you matter, you are not alone. Our LGBT plus students deserve more than just words. They too are bearing their own cross. They deserve action, they deserve life. And for those of you who are considering or thinking about suicide, you can call 1-866-488-7386 or text 678-678. With that, I respectfully and prayerfully ask for your aye vote.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
File item 14, AB 727.
I'm sorry, do we have a motion in a second?
File item 14, AB 727. The motion is due pass as amended to appropriations. Mayor Succi.
Aye.
Mayor Succi, aye. Hoover.
Nope.
Hoover, no. Addis. Alvarez. Fonta.
Aye.
Fonta, aye. Castillo. Castillo, no. Garcia.
Aye.
Garcia, aye. Lowenthal. Patel. Patel, aye.
4-2, the bill is on call. Thank you. Next, we have file item number 4, Assemblymember Mike Gibson, AB 291.